We're just watching the Liberals argue their own climate action plan. In fact, the minister resigned saying that the Liberals flip-flopped on their climate action plan.
You have to hand it to the Conservatives. They are excellent at exposing the Liberals' dishonesty. Most of us are aware that the Memorandum of Understanding Mark Carney's government made with Alberta is not worth the paper that it's printed on, that it's a stunt, something to placate both Brookfield and to placate the voters out west. This, of course, caused a lot of rifts in the Liberal Party, and I believe the position of the Liberal Party is going to be flipping and flopping no matter who Mark Carney happens to be talking to. The Liberal Party claims that they are behind it, that they claim that there's 100% support, and then when the Conservatives ask them to put their money where their mouth is, they begin to waver and they begin to waffle, and they begin during the debate to try to say this is about climate denial by the Conservatives. The fact that the Liberal Party made a claim that they don't intend to back up with a vote, that they don't intend to support by putting it, enshrining it in legislation or in a bill, indicates to anybody who's watching with even the slightest impartiality that the Liberal Party are, again, making claims that they have no intention on following through on. They're saying things to try to trick you, to try to buy time, to try to deceive you into believing that they are of a certain position. But the reality is, behind closed doors, they have in no way, shape, or form going to support these things. They're simply trying to manipulate you or buy time, all of the things that have led us to this disaster of Canada that we are currently experiencing. In the debate, though, Julie DeBruzen decided to make the environment minister decided to make an appearance. Somehow she felt that she had the debate strength to talk to the Conservatives. And I got to be honest with you, it did not go well for her. But it did give Canada a lot of information on just how narrow-minded the Liberal environment minister actually is. Here's some of Ms. DeBruzen's tidbits of wisdom.
Countries around the world are making the transition to clean, low-carbon energy, industries, and technology. They are competing to design the cleanest technologies, produce the cleanest fuels, and operate the cleanest industries.
Prove it. Because I can think in my mind of the air quality of India, which is a nearly developed country, and they would love to stop burning dung and coal so they could power their electricity, their electric plant. I don't know where their oil fields are. Oh, that's right. They're in Russia, they're in Argentina, they could be in Canada. But we have people like Mr. Brusen trying to make everybody think that the whole wide world is powered just like North America. That's why so many people leave their homeland and their family to come to North America, because the life is exactly the same.
They are competing for capital, for talent, and for innovation. This transition reshapes opportunities in trade, investment, and jobs. It's bringing opportunities. I see these very opportunities developing in my home city of Toronto, with more public transit running on clean power, with more walkable, bikeable communities. And we have opportunities to change the way we heat and cool our homes, with heat pumps, better insulated homes, and smart thermostats that learn routines and reduce wasted energy.
First of all, heat pumps don't work below a certain temperature, and that temperature is most of the country. Like, I believe it's minus 15. Once it hits minus 16, your heat pump will not heat your house because the device itself is not able to take the air that it's taking from the outside and make it warm enough. It's that simple. Now, before I tear apart the crack about the buses, let's just dive down a little bit on the smart thermostat that has the ability to learn your routine. So that means that your thermostat has to be connected to the internet to actually function, because it's a smart thermostat and it's going to learn your routines. All you got to do is tell it your whole life. But if you come home early and you want to turn the air conditioner on, that thermostat's not going to permit you to do that. There is no manual override. The federal government will be in charge of how much heat you put into your house. Not feeling good, got the chills? Too bad. The thermostat will not allow you to turn the heat on because the federal government, you want to give this lady permission to change and regulate the amount of heat and coolness you have in your house. After she installs a heat pump in your minus 40 degree weather and then tells you that the thermostat says you should not be in the house, you should be at home or at work. And so therefore you're not allowed to have any heat because the thermostat said so. Because Julie DeBruzen and Mark Carney have decided that being in your life is not, they're not enough in your life. So now they want to control the thermostat. The bus crack and all this technology stuff is just too much. It's some speechwriter's idea of what downtown 1950s would have looked like. The simple fact of the matter is most of the countries that are looking for our oil do not have public transit. They barely have any cars. She wants you to believe that we're selling them that oil and that natural gas so they can put it in their car. And they're like, we would rather just have the oil and the natural gas so that we could light it on fire and boil some water, and that water will turn that generator, that turbine, so that we can have electricity and, I don't know, have lights at night and maybe turn on a stove that's not powered by propane or cow dung or raw coal right out into the air. They do that. Oh, yeah, no, they'll take a glob of coal, drop it on the ground, put their pot on top of it, light it on up, and cook. That's how they're cooking their supper. They like to do that because, they want to eat hot food. Now, I know that's hard for Miss Downtown elitist Julie DeBruzen to wrap her mind around with her high-end, very exclusive condominium, townhouse, whatever she happens to be living in. You can be sure there's no bus running up and down that street. But this was written by a speechwriter who thinks that the world is a television commercial, without ever understanding that when the people are scrambling to come to this country because where they live does not have the things that we have here, such as electricity, such as stoves, such as hot water pumped right into your house.
With cleaner and more dependable electricity, solar rooftops and grids powered by wind, nuclear, and storage. Like I saw in Edmonton, where communities were retrofitting their homes to reduce their energy bills while at the same time reducing emissions. It's impacting how we think about our sustainable future. It's also changing how we connect with nature, with more protected areas, more urban forests, and more opportunities for outdoor recreation close to home.
Right, because Toronto, being some of the most expensive real estate on earth, what they want to do there is put an urban forest in instead of putting in a place for people to live. I suppose that the bike path and people playing close to home would make sense if you're the person who's homeless and you're living in that urban forest. If you've had to pitch your tent inside that urban forest, then I suppose, yeah, what she just said makes sense. Otherwise, that sounds again like some sort of marketing approach, that this speech was written by somebody who Googled it and AI told them what to write. The reality on the ground is we're not selling this for people who live a lifestyle like we do. We are trying to help them to live a lifestyle like we do. The reason that we have this lifestyle is because we have an abundance of electricity. It all starts and stops with electricity. Without electricity, we don't power the machines that make the car. Without electricity, it's all electricity. You imagine in your mind how Julie DeBruzen would have felt if we were having this speech while she was holding on to one of them candles you used to see them holding up, where the sun went down at 4 o'clock in Canada, and that was it. There was no more sun until 7 o'clock, and that's when you decided to eat again, because you know that, and then you could go outside and light a fire so you didn't smoke the whole place right out because you were burning wood right in the middle of the room, or dung or coal. And they're still living like that in many parts of the world. The parts of the world that are looking for our clean, affordable energy are the parts of the world that are not developed to our degree. But you can't expect someone like this to grasp her mind around that because she lives in a TV commercial. She lives in not reality. If we took her and put her in one of those positions for at least 5 minutes, she would lose her mind. She'd be looking around for somebody to, charge up her phone so she could order an Uber. And they'd be like, well, we could probably get you out on this donkey. Of course, because she's a liberal, Julie DeBruzen is easily triggered. And you're going to see an example of it right here.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, we're just watching the Liberals argue their own climate action plan. In fact, the minister resigned saying that the Liberals flip-flopped on their climate action plan. Does my honourable colleague agree with the minister that resigned saying that the Liberals are backtracking on their climate action plan?
What we have done over the past decade is we have not only flattened that trajectory, we have brought emissions down. They are at the lowest they've been in almost 3 decades.
Prove it. Because I've seen some of the numbers that show you don't even, first of all, we all know that you don't keep track of it. Stephen Guilbeault admitted it just 2 years ago in the House of Commons that his department doesn't keep track of it. Now, I want you to prove to me that you're keeping track of these emissions and how they are the lowest they've been in 30 years. That is really, really quite a bold claim. And I just feel like if you had the numbers to support that, that would be all you'd be talking about. You'd be standing up there talking and you'd be trying to show props. You'd be like, look at our website. You'd be putting it up on Twitter, left, right, and center. You're making a false claim because that's all you have. That is why Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives drafted this legislation, to stop you from making a false claim about this MOU while you secretly undermine it, while you sneak behind everybody's back in the typical way that you have been operating for 10 years and work against the very words that you're telling the public you believe in. Now, if you weren't convinced that the Liberals are not going to support their own MOU and you think that they're not trying to pass the buck, like if you for some reason want to tell yourself that I might have misunderstood it, listen to this interaction between Elizabeth May, the leader of the Green Party, who is in no way, shape, or form a friend of Pierre Poilievre and in no way, shape, or form a friend of the Conservatives. In fact, she supported the Liberal budget. She was the decider that made the Liberal budget pass.
To the minister, she must have been aware that in the budget at page 348, there was a commitment to no fossil fuel subsidies for enhanced oil recovery. Was she consulted before that was reversed in the MOU? I sure wasn't.
Madam Speaker, when we're talking about the agreement today and the climate competitiveness strategy, we have an overarching move forward to actually how do we put the pieces in place that we need to fight climate change. That includes industrial carbon price, that includes methane regulations, that includes clean electricity, and the Conservatives every time vote against.
So if I understand you correctly, the Green lady asked you if you've consulted over the changes from your very large deviation from words that you wrote down in the budget to the very actions that you took with Alberta. And somehow in your mind, that becomes a question about methane and the Conservative position on your double talk, on your double speak, on your talking out of both sides of your face, on your writing down one thing and saying and doing another, or saying one thing and doing another. How, in any way, shape, or form, is the question from the Green Party about the Conservatives? Somebody might have a little bit of Conservative on the mind. I think you might be a little bit fixated there, MP de Bruzen. But I assure you that the question was not about what the Conservatives are doing. You didn't answer the question. You simply deflected and tried to make it all about how the Conservatives, how dare they vote against you? How dare they stand up to the people that have ruined the economy, that have ruined our standard of living, that have ruined our housing, ruined our hospitals, ruined our schools? How dare they stand their ground against people who have been making false claims and saying one thing and doing another for over 10 years? I, for one, applaud the Conservatives for challenging you on this. I, for one, think that it is only right, that it is only Canadian to put your money where your mouth is, to prove it, to pony up, to bleep or get off the pot, as they like to say in certain parts of this country. I think that there's nothing wrong with asking you to prove that your intentions are as valid as you claim, for the rest of us not to waste time while you secretly undermine all of our efforts, to reassure us that you're not actually just trying to stab us in the back as we work toward a goal that is designed to help Canadians overcome poverty and help the lower parts, what they call the global south, overcome what can only be called a technological dark ages. Let them overcome where they have no stove, but some of them do have one television in the local donut shop or coffee shop or whatever they happen to call it. Let them overcome these problems with our clean energy so they can have the electricity to start to move forward in their lives, so they can have the electricity to put down asphalt, so they can have the electricity to power hospitals, so they can have the electricity to power schools, so they can have the electricity to let women get education and let children to not work in the farms, so they can have the electricity to take their country from what we were at in the 1700s and move them into the modern era, so they won't have to come across the world to try to live somewhere else. But you don't care about any of that, do you, Mr. Brusen? Because you don't care about anybody but yourself and your own policies and your own ideas and how all of this can benefit you, but not the rest of us. And that's how it looks to me. But you can leave me your opinion down in the comments. I'm going to wrap here. Thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.